Today we're with Doug Wilke, CEO of Valley Queen Cheese Factory in Milbank, South Dakota. Doug, your company has a long tradition in Milbank and in the cheese industry. Give us a little bit of the heritage.
Well, Joel, thanks. First of all, thanks for having me. Really interesting history and heritage that we're proud of here at Valley Queen. Started out as kind of an interesting story. Two Swiss immigrants working together in a Wisconsin cheese plant had decided to go out on their own and establish and start a cheese business in Montana. So Alfred Ganzenbach, so there's two families that own the business still today. Alfred Ganzenbach and Alfred Neff were the first generation Swiss immigrants to establish the company in 1929. Alfred Ganzenbach took off on a trip to establish a cheese plant in Montana and stopped in Milbank, South Dakota for gas. And as he tells the story, he was fueling up and the gas station attendant came out and didn't see a Wisconsin license plate that often and asked what he was doing. And he said he was on his way to Montana and looking to establish a cheese plant, and the gas station attendant convinced him to stay for the night and said, "We'd like to have a cheese plant built here. Why don't you stay for the night and I'll take you out and introduce you to some farmers." And a long story short, he ended up staying here, and they ended up building a cheese plant and an old filtration plant that the city owned, and we're getting ready to go on our 90th year here.
That's a great story. I love that. And that was back in 1929, I think.
Correct.
Today, though, you're the new kid on the block. You've come over from Wisconsin. Tell us about how you come to be the CEO.
Well, I'm lucky and fortunate to have the opportunity to lead the Valley Queen team here. I had 30 years in the dairy industry prior to coming here in Wisconsin. So grew up on a family farm in central Wisconsin and went to work for a dairy cooperative there that eventually became Foremost Farms. So I've got about 30 years of experience in the dairy industry. The opportunity came along to come here and work for Valley Queen, and in January of 17, I took over here as a CEO and have had an opportunity to lead the group, and it's been a real special experience. I'd be the first non-family member CEO, and right now things are going great, and we're looking forward to a bright future.
Well, tell us a little bit about the company today. What kind of production? We understand it is the largest, at the moment, the largest cheese plant, cheese processor in South Dakota. Tell us about your product and the amount of milk you use and the farms that you work with.
Sure. So just a little, so we've got 260 employees that work here. We get our milk from 44 local dairy farms, and the plant currently processes around 4.2 million pounds of milk a day. We find ourselves in a fortunate situation where we're going through a plant expansion. About 5.3 million pounds of milk per year with the existing producer base. So we do have good growth with our existing producers, and we'll continue to let them get efficient and grow at the farm level and bring that milk in. What we primarily manufacture here is 640-pound blocks of American-style cheeses. So cheddar and Monterey Jack and Colby and Pepper Jack and some of those low-fat items. So we're primarily a cheese manufacturer. And in today's day and age, if you're going to be in the cheese business, you've got to be in the whey business. So we make whey protein concentrate for human nutrition. And then we also make lactose that's used as an ingredient out in the industry. A majority of that gets exported. And then we also make anhydrous milk fat, which is a concentrated milk fat that mainly gets used in the manufacture of chocolate. So that's kind of our base business, and through the expansion, we're just going to continue to build on what we do well and expand those additional or existing product lines.
Well, it's great to know that you've got growing demand for your product, I presume. Has the international situation, whether it's tariffs or other international events, changed your business? how active are you in the export market?
We we'll say it seems like the landscape on exports and tariffs changes and is fluid and changes daily. We do export lactose, so around 50% of our lactose we manufacture here gets exported to New Zealand. That hasn't really been impacted by any of the current situations on trade. The biggest impact that we'd be exposed to here in South Dakota really is our competitors losing market share. Manufacturer in California or Texas or East Coast loses an export market. That just pushes product back into the United States, and it gives us more competition. We get a small imbalance here of milk and dairy products. It has a pretty dramatic effect on pricing. So even though we may not be exporting a lot of cheese, that export market is critically important to U.S. dairy manufacturers.
Thank you for that explanation. We know that South Dakota, the state government, has been supporting and encouraging processors and also recruiting producers to come to the state. The I-29 corridor is a real hotspot with South Dakota and Minnesota and Iowa. Tell us a little bit about the kind of the state of mind, the atmosphere that you're working in.
Well, as you had alluded to, I'm kind of the new kid on the block, coming out here to South Dakota. But everything that I have seen and heard, certainly a business-friendly environment. The thing that we're encouraged by is the milk supply continues to grow. So dairy producers seem to be able to work with the state to get dairy sited, to grow that milk supply. A friendly environment from a manufacturing standpoint. We have just had we've had no issues at all. I mean, when it comes to regulatory or growth or a business friendly environment. So we've been really fortunate. And there's a couple of expansions going happening in the I-29 corridor, and we feel pretty good about having an ample milk supply to fill up the plant, even as a couple of plants are built. So certainly an agricultural and business-friendly environment.
Well, that's great to hear. Always fun to hear positive developments in the dairy industry, which maybe we have to look a little harder to find these days. Doug, thank you very much for speaking with us. This is Joel Hastings for This Week in Dairy and Dairy Business News.
Thank you, Joel.